Okay, we are I'm listening to Tara Brock, and I have previously mentioned her in the past because she has been my
It can help to imagine what unmet needs they might have
for the past 16 years. And everything I hear is online on podcasts. This one is Wildering the Circles of Care. And I'm actually heading to, I was invited to my close friend daughter's performance. So I'm very excited to have the opportunity to experience this. So it's the 13th, it's the 18th of this month, and I'm not a numerologist. I'm not very good with astrology. However, I do know my birth date. And I was born September, so 9/18/1989. And I just think that interesting numbers, 09/18/1989. I just feel like, what a cool birth date to have, right? So I share the 18th. My oldest brother shares the 18th of a different month. He was born maybe 16 years after I was born. A few of my relatives and I share the same month. Some of my closest relatives, actually. And my brother also shares the same month, so he was born 9/7. And I'm wondering, for the longest time, I've been wondering to myself, like, how strong is our belief system, our desires? Like, how, again, I'm not a mathematician. I don't really know numbers, but how likely are we to succeed based off our desires, based off of the strength within, the faith? When I was at the JC, one of the things that we learned in my brother's right here. One of the things that we learned in interpersonal communications was like the basic foundations of of living, which were, what are your values, what is your faith? And I remember like sitting in class and having to write these papers, and that term value, like that's such a like common word, that in faith is a common word that we are constantly hearing. But when you really think, like, what are your values, it becomes a little bit more, like, I'd say difficult to understand, because at least for me as an individual, I feel like I can only judge my life based on my experience, right? And that's what it's always been for me. So when I hear, what are your values, I start to think, like, well, that sounds like such a daunting question, especially when you start thinking of the actions that you've made, and things of that nature, and how you populate and or pollute your own mind, right? Through the strengths that carry you through weaknesses, and strengths that carry you through, like, the purity of believing in something that you're capable of. And that's kind of what I'm getting to now. I was gonna apologize to the 40 viewers that watch this, because my hair isn't done. I have to meet, as I mentioned, I'm meeting my friend for a performance, and I'm hoping that she has some tool that I can use on this hair. I just felt like it's not even necessary to apologize, but yeah, I was saying it is like value, what we value, and what are the strengths of our beliefs. Like, do we believe, if we believe that we can achieve a certain goal in life, does that actually come to fruition? Does that come reality? Like, can we actually obtain our dreams, so to say? You know, I think when you start looking at your presence, the answer is yes. I've recently started, I started going into, a year ago during Christmas, my aunt, who is now turning 80 next month, so lucky 8s, told me something very sacred and personal. And she's always been someone who's walked in faith. Her and my grandmother and my aunt have always been like very religious women, like the ones who are in the front of the church wearing the veil, which I think is so beautiful. But I've, you know, when I was growing up, my first years in life, my father would take me into the Christian churches. So I was baptized by a few Christian churches, and let me tell you, I don't know how helpful that was, but my dad tried to instill religion upon us at a very young age. As humans, we're very hypocritical, and I think that's just the honest truth. We've all made mistakes, and we, you know, have crumbled our own foundations, which is the reason why I have also like hesitated. However, because my aunt, as I was mentioning, who's turning 80 next month, has requested that has always kind of guided me into, you know, practicing greater faith for myself as an individual. She has, ever since I was a teenager, ever since before I could remember, she always wanted me to be baptized by the Catholic Church. And I, you know, as a teenager, to be honest, the reason why I didn't want to go into the Bible studies was because I didn't know how to read, and I knew that we had to read the Bible. So I was embarrassed, and I always said I just didn't want to deal with that embarrassment. So I never actually went through with that as a teenager or preteen. So now as an adult, I have made it a goal of mine to go into the doctrine. And it's so interesting because I didn't really, you know, I've gone through a lot of my personal fears. So now I'm not afraid of anything. For the most part, I feel like if I might stutter in front of a group, it's perfectly fine. To my surprise, I have like really grasped people's attention when I read in a group. But then I'm also able to like set myself back and allow others to feel comfortable in the process of reading as well. Mind you, these individuals who I've sat with in the past have worked for like NASA, the man who I first sat with. And at first, when he started talking about work, I felt so intimidated, but he was like in his 60s, and I think one of his child had passed away, but he was going back in for those reasons into the Catholic faith. Either way, I can understand how difficult it is as well to, you know, attempt to do something but have other things that come up that take you away from prioritizing that. And sometimes it's silly things that